Ray Kurzweil, inventor, author, futurist, businessman. Thanks very much for talking to Business Spectator.
My pleasure.
Your work on longevity and living a long time, if not forever, has captured the public imagination. Why do you think that gets so much attention compared to your technology work?
Longevity is a major issue with human beings. We all have a deep anxiety about dying. It's very hard to understand. So we invented religion because that was the best thing we could do in terms of rationalizing that this tragic event, which was looming in our lives, that's actually a good thing. But we still have that longing to extend our lives. And a lot of people, muse philosophically, oh, I don't want to live past 100. I'd like to see them say that when they are 100. And I do talk to 100-year-olds, and they want to live to see tomorrow. And so it's not a matter that we want to live 500 years. We want to live to see tomorrow. And research shows that the only people that don't want to live to tomorrow are people in terrible pain, physical or emotional. Otherwise, we have a desire to live and to be creative and to express ourselves. People say, oh, if we live a long time, life will get boring. That would be true if we only had radical life extension and not life expansion. But we're going to have the latter also. We will have millions of virtual reality environments we can go to. That'll be extremely compelling in the future.
On this particular issue of longevity, I expect that you, Ray Kurzweil, have a different notion of life expectancy even today than what might be actuarial notions. Have you done any work in that area, the gap between what you think people will live, who are born today, how long they will live for compared to what the insurance companies are saying?
Not only people born today, but even people my age,
Yes.
baby boomers, I'm 63. Life actuarial statistics are based on looking backwards, and they take into consideration very modest gains, completely ignoring a major transformation that's occurring, which is health and medicine is no longer hit or miss. We now actually have the software of life, and we can reprogram it. And so it's going to go into exponential advances, not just linear ones. We have gone from 20 1,000 years ago. Life expectancy was 37 in 1800. It was 48 in 1900. It's now pushing 80. 15 years from now, we'll be adding more than a year every year to your remaining life expectancies. That's not a guarantee, but that's going to push out life expectancy dramatically. There's no fixed limit. People say, oh, there's an absolute limit of 120. That's because of specific things like the length of the telomeres and genetic mutations in the mitochondrial DNA, all of which we can fix. We know how to fix them. Ultimately, we can keep pushing back.
What do you think life expectancy is today, and what should the pension age be if it's 67 now?
Well, I found it amusing that there were national strikes in France of moving the retirement age from 60 to 62. So I'm thinking, these people really don't like their jobs. So in another sense, I retired when I was 5 because I decided I would do exactly what I wanted to do, which was, in my case, was to be an inventor, and I had a passion for creating things. I think people should do what they have a passion for, then they won't be eager to retire. They'll be eager to continue what they're doing. Someone who paints and is a great painter doesn't want to stop it just because they're
No, but
65.
in terms of large industrial conglomerates, what is a realistic retirement age, knowing what you know?
I don't think that it will be. I mean, we will get to a point where 65-year-olds are like 35-year-olds. And we're not going to be just doing one thing. The idea that you learn a trade and then you do that for 30, 40 years until you retire, that model is already broken down. We're going to keep learning new things. Most of the jobs that exist in the world today didn't exist 50 years ago. That's going to even accelerate. 25 years from now, we'll all be doing something quite different that we can't even define yet. And the idea is actually to do things where you have a passionate desire to do them and to keep doing them.
Ray, do you think Australia can specialise, or is it sensible to specialise in one particular area on the global stage?
Well, it's a very interconnected world, and there's not an Australian economy and an American economy. It's all very interrelated. Ultimately, manufacturing is going to be transformed by the emerging world of three-dimensional printers. We're going to be able to print out physical objects. You can already print out a wide variety of products. I could email you a violin. If you have a three-dimensional printer, you could print it out. There was a violin on the cover of The Economist about a year ago that was printed out on a three-dimensional printer. The precision of three-dimensional printers is getting finer and finer. ultimately we'll be able to print out devices like this, or even a blouse on three-dimensional printers.
Right.
So I think manufacturing is going to be very decentralized if we go out 10, 20 years. Software, though, is where it's at. And actually, Australia is very creative.
Okay, and one last question for you, Ray. I notice in reading interviews with you and watching that certain subjects reappear, certain issues continually reappear. Is there a question you wish you were asked more often, and what might the answer to that be?
Well, one question I think that people should ask is what are the downsides? And I've written actually...
Of living so long?
Of all of these technologies.
Yes.
And I've written actually extensively about them. Technology is a double-edged sword. Fire kept us warm, but also burned down our villages. And like biotechnology that's going to extend human life, cure cancer, could also be applied by a bioterrorist to reprogram a biological virus and make it into a bioweapon. We're not defenseless against those things. Some people say, oh, because of that, we just shouldn't pursue these things. They're too dangerous. Let's relinquish biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and so on. I think that's quite unrealistic. I think it's immoral because there's still a lot of suffering in the world. There's still people dying of cancer, and we're close, in fact, to making advances in that area. It'd be immoral to stop it. But we do need to put a high priority on keeping these technologies safe, and that's a long discussion, but there are things we can do. Look at software viruses. If we just sat back and said no one would ever put out a software virus, the internet wouldn't last 10 minutes, but we actually have a technological immune system that protects us. We need to do the same thing in these other areas of technology.
Thank you very much, Ray Kurzweil, for talking to